Last night, a friend rushed me out of the house to catch the opening act at a local bar's music night. We had a few drinks, laughed a little, and for a while, everything felt normal. But later that evening, I reached for my phone and realized it wasn't in my pocket. Panic hit me fast. I checked the table we were sitting at, the bar counter, even the bathrooms. Nothing. No luck. So I borrowed my friend's phone to call mine. After just 2 rings, someone picked up. All I heard was a low, raspy giggle, followed by silence. And then the line went dead. My heart dropped. I tried again. This time, no answer. Over and over I dialed, but whoever had my phone refused to pick up again. Finally, I gave it up as a lost cause, finished my drink, and headed home. But when I walked into my bedroom, I froze. My phone was right there, sitting neatly on my nightstand, right where I'd left it. When I was a kid, I was always the last one picked up by the school bus. One morning, I stood waiting alone at the usual spot when a bus pulled up, completely empty. The driver, a man I'd never seen before, leaned out the window, smiled, and told me to hop on. Something about him felt off immediately. I hesitated and asked, "Where are the other kids?" He smiled wider and said, "We'll get them now. Just get on." My stomach sank. His tone grew sharper, more insistent, almost pushy. But I kept shaking my head. Finally, without another word, he shrugged and drove off. Minutes later, my real bus pulled up, full of kids and the usual driver. I went on with my day, not thinking much of it until that night when I told my parents. Their faces went pale. I still remember the panic in their voices as they scrambled to make phone calls. Looking back, I know I came terrifyingly close to stepping onto the wrong bus with the wrong man. A few years later, I rented an apartment from a friend. He had just bought the place, renovated it, and decided to lease it until he could sell. Everything seemed fine until I met the woman next door. She looked to be in her mid-40s, but carried herself like someone decades older. Every night, she would stay up until dawn, blasting Christian radio programs, her voice carrying through the walls as she argued and shouted at someone who wasn't there. Eventually, I'd had enough and went to ask her to keep it down. She opened the door just a crack, and I caught a glimpse inside. Every wall was painted with crosses in different colors. Words like Jesus and angels were scribbled in thick strokes. The windows were blacked out, and the place reeked of damp carpet and decay. Cockroaches crawled across the floor. She didn't say much, just stared at me, then shut the door. Moments later, the volume went up even louder. The next night, my girlfriend stayed over. In the middle of the night, I woke up to see a shadow standing at the foot of my bed. My brain told me I was dreaming. Until the shadow spoke. It was my neighbor. She was inside my apartment, clutching something in her hand. Her voice was cold as she whispered, "You should lock your doors at night." Then, just as suddenly, she turned and walked out. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The next morning, I heard her outside beneath my window, muttering in tongues, clutching a plastic bag. Inside was her dead dog, rotting in the summer heat. That was when I knocked on another neighbor's door to ask if they knew what was going on. His face told me everything. She had broken into his apartment once too, while he was watching TV with his kids. He came back from the kitchen to find her standing behind his couch, holding a power drill. That was the moment I realized what she had been holding in my room. Terrified, I called the cops. They already knew her. She was a violent schizophrenic who refused her medication. Because she owned the apartment, the police couldn't intervene unless she left. So I waited. For 2 nights, I stayed awake, listening, praying. At 2 in the morning, she finally left to buy cigarettes. I called the cops, and within minutes they had her in a van. She was gone, just like that. But even today, I still wake up sometimes, seeing her shadow standing at the foot of my bed. Years later, I was working a late night shift, close to finishing up, when a deafening crash echoed through the office. I walked out to see that one of the front windows had been shattered by a rock. What unsettled me most was that I worked in an empty industrial district. Nothing was open. No one should have been around. Shaken, I called security and decided to head home. On the way, fear gnawed at me. I sprinted to my car, threw myself inside, and sped off. Relief started to wash over me until I realized something chilling. I hadn't unlocked my car when I got in. It was already unlocked. Someone had been inside. I checked the back seat, my hands trembling, but found nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Later that night, I decided to meet a friend at a bar. I rode my bike through the quiet streets, enjoying the cool air. That's when I heard another bike behind me. Slowly, a man pulled up alongside me. He turned, grinning ear to ear. His smile was unhinged, wild, like he knew something I didn't. Then I looked closer. He was riding my mother's bike. By the time I reached home, I confirmed it. Her bike was gone. And worse, one of the back doors on my car, the one I never used, was hanging wide open. But the strangest experience of all happened when I worked nights at a campground. It wasn't a bad job. I passed the hours playing video games, seeing just a handful of people. My co-worker warned me about something strange before he quit. A payphone a few feet from the shack would ring every single night at exactly 4:17 a.m. He said it was probably just an automated test call, but he never answered it himself. For months, I ignored it. Then one summer night, I left the windows open and right on schedule, the phone rang. The sound was eerie, like the phone was underwater. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I set an alarm, waited by the phone, and answered. Nothing but dead air. I tried again the next night. Same thing. For a week, it was always the same. Silence. Eventually, I stopped. But in October, I tried once more. This time, after a long silence, I heard it. Someone breathing, slow and ragged, like their teeth were clenched. And then a voice, low, rough, like gravel, spoke my full name, my first, middle, and last. I froze. I had never heard that voice before in my life. Terrified, I hung up, dropped change into the phone, and hit star 69. The call had come from California. I lived in Indiana. To this day, I have no idea who was on the other end of that line or how they knew my name. Hope you have enjoyed the reading. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.